Next, representing the Vancouver campus, we'll hear from Michael Berger, Scholarly Associate Professor in the School of Environment and School of Biological Sciences.
Okay, well, thank you, Jessica, and it's great to have a chance to talk to everyone, so thank you for being here. So I'm very excited to talk to you, and again, I guess I should introduce myself as Mike Berger, which Jessica kindly did. I'm very excited to talk to you about the integration of service learning in the Environment, Human Life, and Sustainability, SOE 110, which is a course that I taught that I teach on the Vancouver campus. SOE 110 is part of WSU's, has a UCOR designation, which means that not only do students majoring in SOE degrees take the course, but also a variety of students across multiple colleges. So the College of Arts and Sciences, there's students from engineering, business, communication, and education, to name a few. Could you turn the slide or go to the next slide, please, Rob? Thank you. So again, that this course encompasses a wide range of student backgrounds. And the other really important thing to keep in mind is that, particularly on the Vancouver campus, there are many non-traditional students enrolled in this course. And so what that means when you start placing that into the context of experiential learning is that students have a lot of responsibilities outside of the classroom. And that can really play into access and barriers in participating in experiential learning, which I want to talk about in a few minutes. As far as the integration of a service learning assignment in this course, what I opted to do was to give students the choice to participate in either a service learning assignment or to choose a more of a standard writing assignment. Both were designed to be equitable in terms of time and commitment and points associated with the course. So both were equitable. Students had a choice to choose between the two assignments. I tried, very hard to kind of sell and encourage service learning as a potential option, as a very potentially valuable part of their learning experience. And I want to hopefully talk a little bit more about that later on in terms of student perception of experiential learning, and also kind of have you walk away and think about, how do we promote experiential learning, in the classroom, and how do we make that more of a cultural norm in courses? And again, I'll try to touch on more on that in a few minutes. To provide you a little more background about how I integrated the service learning assignment into this course, students who chose to participate in the service learning assignment were required to work with 2 community partners for a minimum of 2 hours per event. And students were allowed to choose a partner of interest. One criteria was that the partner or the work that they did with the partner had to align with the course. The course has really, a broad slice across environmental science. There's a lot of different ways that they can approach and connect working with a community partner to some of the course learning goals. So that wasn't what I would consider to be a very huge barrier. In fall of 2021, when I last taught the course, there were 5 virtual community partner options and 8 face-to-face community partner options that students chose. Some of those, or all the virtual and some of the face-to-face community partner options were set up in advance with great help from the Center for Civic Engagement. And some were partners that students sought out and worked on setting up the capacity to work with them, which was something that I encouraged students to do, which was work with a community partner that you felt you would get the most out of effectively. As part of the assignment, students were given 2 main writing components. The first was a summary of expectations that they completed before working with a community partner. And what that allowed them to do was to kind of summarize and focus on what they thought the experience would be like, and what they thought they would gain from the experience, and what they thought the community would gain from their role in civic engagement. And then they went out and they worked with the community partners. And towards the end of the course, they reflected on what that service learning experience was like in terms of discussing, what did they get out of the service learning experience? How did their expectations compare to the actual experience? Were there any surprises that they discovered along the way? How did the work fit with the context of the course? And very importantly, how did the role in service learning benefit the community? So this was a way for them to really kind of think about and think about what their expectations would be, and then kind of reflect back on those expectations relative to participating in the experience with a community partner. Next slide, please. So I thought it would be really interesting to take a look at, what were some of the dominant words that were used in both of the expectations assignment and also the reflection at the end. So what I did was I just created a word cloud. I took all of the text from all of the expectations assignment, and then on the left-hand side, and then the right-hand side is a word cloud based on all of the text from the reflection. And what you can kind of see and get out of this is that or at least one thing I think you can get out of this is that the expectations were really aligned with the actual experience. You see a lot of similarity in words, that were dominant in terms of community and environment and projects and things of that sort. So what this kind of tells me to some degree is that students that actively chose to participate in community engagement, really kind of perceive this as a good return on investment. In other words, that they bought into it and they saw the value in it. Next slide, please. But what this doesn't really get at is the students that didn't participate because it was optional. Only about half of the students chose to complete the service learning assignment. And I think that's great. That's actually really exciting that half of them did. What would really excite me would be 100% of the students deciding that this was, the direction they want to go in. When you start thinking about why only half the students participated. Most have never participated in service learning. And a lot of that, I think, is driven by the fact that they haven't been exposed to it. Service learning at this point, is not the cultural norm. And really what I would like, the direction I'd like to go in, what I really like to think about is how do we move the needle and get to that point where service learning is the cultural norm and not the exception. And I think part of addressing that is thinking about, well, what are the potential barriers in terms of, exposure to what service learning is and experiential learning is, what student perception is in terms of how the process works and what they gain from it. How do we address time accessibility and time limitations, and also think about how do we integrate, and think about all the family commitments that students have and how we can work towards, effectively providing experiences that will suit those demands. So next slide, please. So and just end by showing my contact information and saying thank you very much for your time. And I'd love to discuss this further and answer any questions.